with the Potomac Bead Company, and I am going to get to do a bracelet for you guys today. This also could be turned into a necklace or a pair of earrings, but I'm going to concentrate on the bracelet. We've gotten a couple new products in that we're really having fun with, and I've been really busy, so I haven't had a chance to make some videos for you guys, so I'm excited to sit down today and do it. And I'm going to be using our RounDuo beads. This is one of our newer colors. It's pastel light brown. It has a really nice kind of shimmer to it. So I'm going to be using that. Here I've used the jade color on the sample. And then I'm also going to be using, again, a newer product, which is the 2-hole triangle bead. So the 2-hole triangle bead, I'm going to be using 2 colors. In my sample piece, I used 1 color, that bronze color. For my piece that I'm making, I thought it would be fun to run a different color down the middle. So I'm going to be using the turquoise color of the CzechMates 2-hole triangle and then the oxidized brown color to kind of play off this pastel light brown. I'm also using a tube of Matubo 8-0 seed beads, which you can use regular 8-0s. The Matubos are just a slight bit bigger, but regular 8-0s would work as well. This is the Crystal Lila Gold Luster color. The Matubos, if you haven't used them, they're really consistent. They're a very nice, instead of a rounded shape, they have a little bit more of a delicate shape, but still that nice rounded seed bead shape. Larger hole, very consistent. They're a product out of the Czech Republic. I'm also going to be using the opaque turquoise green Matubo or Mayuki 8-0 seed bead, and then I have a 15-0 seed bead that I'm going to be working with. And the 15-0 seed bead that I'm working with is the peridot lined crystal AB. I'm using those same colors that I used on the sample piece here in my piece that I'm working with. This is a 2-needle project. So you're going to want 2 size 10 needles, and I'm using Wildfire beading thread in 0.006, and with my color range here I'm using the green thread. This bracelet, you don't see the thread too much, but you always want to pick a thread color that's going to be as close as matching to your beads as possible, that way you don't see a lot of it. I'm going to close my bracelet off with this cup button here in the Jade Picasso. I think it really ties all those colors in nicely. And I have next to me, in addition to my thread, my needles, and the bead mat I'm working on, I have my slip and snip scissors to cut my thread. I also have a thread burner sitting around. There's the Thread Zap 2. There's also an Ultra now, which is getting fancier, and the tip retracts, so that's kind of cool. I'll have to bring one of those home to play with. And then some super new glue sitting around in case you want to glue any of your knots. Again, it is a 2-needle project that we're going to be working with, and you are going to want to make little piles of all of your beads because we're going to be working with pretty much them all at the same time here. Okay, so to get started, I have all of my beads laying out, and I'm going to actually start with my cup button as my closure clasp. Since it already is this Jade Picasso color, I'm actually going to pick up one of my RounDuo beads and use that in the middle. This light pastel brown has kind of almost a pearlescence look, which I think is why I like that color so much. I'm also going to use 2 of my 15-0 seed beads that are here. So I'm going to go through one of my RounDuo beads, going through both holes and a needle. I did forget to say that I took 5 feet of beading thread and I put a needle on each. A little trick and technique: if you need help getting this thread on your needle, just give it a little squash at the ends. It'll really fan it out and make it easier for you to thread. So that RounDuo bead is going to go on, and then after each needle's coming out, I'm going to put a 15-0 on each needle. I'm then going to go through my cup button with the bowl side down and give a little pull, and that's going to put that bead there just sticking up just the tiniest of little bits, and it really kind of plays off that. One of the needles I'm going to go back through that 15-0, the RounDuo, doesn't matter which one, I'm just circling back around, and what that's going to do is that's going to reinforce my thread. Then I'm going to go down the other side, coming back out. Anytime you have any clasp or closure around, you're always going to want to have at least 2 pieces of thread going through. The nice thing, because I'm using the green thread, you see it a little bit, but it goes with my pattern. I'm then going to turn my cup button over, grab my two ends of my needles here, and I'm going to start working with those and working on my pattern, picking up my 8/0s and then going right into my RounDuo pattern. So I'm going to go ahead now and pick up one of my Potomac beads on each needle, and then also one of my regular 8/0 seed beads. I'm going to let those drop down next to my cup button here, and that's going to be my little closure. The technique for this bracelet is going to be a lot of crisscrossing of needles. I'm doing it with 2 needles. For the experienced beader, if you want, you can do it with 1 needle. That's up to you. But 2 needles are great for a lot of beginners. So I'm going through one of my RounDuo holes with 1 needle going from left to right, and I'm going through that same hole with the other needle going from right to left. I'm going to pull my thread, and when you pull it then, that bead's just going to sit right down to the side. On either side now of my bead here, I'm going to put on one of my Potobos, one of my 8/0, and a Potomac. The needle that's on the right hand side, I'm going to go through the upper hole, going from the right to left, pulling that thread through. I'm going to put that down, pick up the needle on the other side, and do the same pattern on the other side, picking up the Potomac, 8 Potomac. This time my needle is going to go through the opposite way and give a nice tight pull. A lot of times when I'm doing 2 needle project, everything that I do on the left hand side, I'm also going to do on the right hand side. It mirrors itself, and that's what makes it move so quickly and easily when you're working with it. So right now my thread is coming out of my RounDuo. You want to make sure that it doesn't go into your Potomac bead. At this point, I'm going to get ready to start the sides. So that basically is right here. The start, we're just using the clasp and adding that on. So to do our sides, we are going to pick up a 15/0, one of our RounDuo beads, and then on the side, I'm going to pick up the Potomac, the 8, the Potomac. Let that all drop down next to your project. Now what you're going to do is run your needle back through that same RounDuo bead that you're coming out of, going from the bottom hole to the top hole towards the center of your project. Give a nice tight pull. On the other needle, which I'm now going to flip my project just to make it easier to hold, I'm going to do the same thing. 15/0, RounDuo, 8, 8, 8. Back through towards the center of the project and give a nice tight pull. So you can see now the RounDuos are kind of hanging out there on the sides. When I get back to the middle, I'm going to add my outer color of my bump here, my ridge. And then just to start out here, because I can't start out with all of them on right away, we're going to start out by adding an 8/0 seed bead. So I have my middle peaks basically that I'm adding. So I'm going to do a 15/0 on one of the needles. Then I'm going to do my outer color, which is going to be my darker color. And actually I'm going to switch that. I'm going to use my teal color. And then I'm going to put on my 8/0. I'm going to put on another one of my beads here. When you're working with them, you also need to make sure that they're facing the correct way. And then I'm going to put on another 15/0. And I'm going to take my needle and thread through the RounDuo on the opposite side. So you're basically putting on those 5 beads. Give a nice tight pull, and you can see then the start of that little stegosaurus look there with those spikes hanging out in the middle. So our peaks are starting to form. The needle that was on the left-hand side here, I'm going to take that through the 15/0. So we're going to go back to the other side, going through the 15/0. Oops. Going back through my 2 hold, going back through the 8, back through the 15-0 on the other side, and coming out the RounDuo bead. So basically I'm adding all of those beads here. Oops, trying not to get it tangled. If you do get it tangled, it's easy to get out there. So you can see everybody kind of gets tangles. And then give it a nice tight pull. So that's going to be the very start to the bracelet. The nice thing is the bracelet pattern now repeats itself the entire time. So when I'm coming out the RounDuos here, what I'm going to do is get ready actually to add another RounDuo by adding one of my 8/0s, and then we're going to continue on the pattern. So the needle that's on the right hand side here, I'm going to pick up my Mayuki color here, that teal color, and I'm going to pick up a RounDuo. And that was my right needle. I'm going to do the same thing on the left. I'm going to pick up an 8/0 seed bead and a RounDuo bead. I'm going to let those drop down next to my project. Now what I'm going to do is do my middle, because this is going to be our sides. So to do my middle, I'm going to start connecting to these 2-hole triangles. So I'm going to pick up a 15/0. The 15/0s just help to give it a little bit of movement. I'm going to sew through that 2-hole triangle, add another 2-hole triangle, and then I'm going to sew through the next one. And I'm also going to sew through the RounDuo right where your thread is coming out. Give a nice tight pull. And wants to knot again. And then once you get that through there and get it pulled, you will see it's starting to take its shape. Once you're in there too, it just really wants to twist. Okay. Once it's in there too, then I'm going to take the needle that's on the left here and I'm going to go the whole way to the right hand side. So again, anything you do on the left, you also do on the right. Needle's going to go through. I'm picking up my 15/0, going through to the other side, coming out the RounDuo on the other side. Once I'm out the sides here, so you can see that peak starting to happen, and I like the color variety of the peak. I think it makes it a lot nicer as far as look-wise rather than all one color. It kind of makes it stand out a little bit more. On the side then of my RounDuo, I'm going to get ready to repeat my project, which I did before. I'm going to do my 8/0, the 3 of them, going through my RounDuo. When I'm coming out the RounDuo towards the middle of my project, that's where I'm going to pick up a 15, pick up another one of my 2-hole triangles, sew through the 2-hole triangle in the middle. So I'm sewing through that empty hole of the one that's already there. When I come out the other side, I'm going to add another one of my 2-hole triangles. I'm going to add a 15/0, and I'm going to go through that top hole of the RounDuo that's already there on the other side. And that gets the next middle. That needle is going to hang out there while I come back on the left hand side now, do my 3 11/0s, my matubos with my 11/0 on the side, go through my RounDuo, my 15/0, my 2-hole triangles, straight over to the other side, coming out the RounDuo bead. Give a nice tight pull on either side, and that gets the pattern going. Again, once you're out here on the RounDuo bead, on goes an 8 and another RounDuo. On goes a 15/0. we're going to go back through now, picking up that other little triangle there. Once you're in the middle of the triangle, again, that's where you're going to add another one of your triangles, and this time it's that middle triangle. So through the next triangle, popping that one in place. When you're coming out the other side, you're going to just hang out there, and I'm going to repeat what I did on the right here on the left hand side, adding an 8 and my round duo. Adding a 15-0, then going the whole way through to the other side, coming out the round duo bead. The needle that was just hanging out there that I had previously used, I'm going to pick up. So through that 15-0 and through the round duo. Once you're out on the sides then, I'm just going to hang out here and get ready to add our little peaks there using our matubos and our 8/0 seed beads. And it's going to continue with this fashion the whole way around. It gets that fun peak look to it and really kind of pops and stands out. So you're going to continue with that same exact pattern, going zigzagging and crossing the whole entire length of your wrist, and then when we get to the end, we're going to add a loop. So just showing as we're moving right along here, kind of the side view of the peaks as well as the rounds there. It really has a really pretty regal feel, even though it has kind of those little spikes going on with the middle. And I'm just continuing on, kind of working with one side and then going with the other, adding on and continuing my pattern. And when you're working with this too, it gives you a kind of new perspective as you're working and looking at which way the triangles go and making sure the holes line up and all of that. So it's fun to work with these new beads and think of new ways and new designs to use them and how you're going to play around. Some beads, when I pick them up, I know exactly what I'm going to do with them. Like if you haven't had a chance yet to check out the 2-hole crescent beads, that's going to be a video that I do soon. I know exactly what I'm going to do with those. They just, in my mind, I pick them up. Others like these, I just sit down, play around with, and say, okay, what do I want to do with these 2-hole spikes? And play around a lot with 2 needles just because then it's easier to work with, and you get kind of a fun design working with all of these different shapes and playing around as well. So I'm continuing building just like we've been doing. I usually work with 1 needle for a little bit, and then I pick up the other needle. So I'll go 1 complete time on one side, and then I sit that needle down and I'll pick up the needle on this side here and work from this side, joining everything together. And that way, while I have 1 needle in my hand, I can work a little faster and continue on with my design. So I'm at the point now that I have my bracelet finished, and what I'm going to do is actually make the loop and kind of close off. So just like the start of the bracelet, I'm going to use one of my 8/0 beads in the middle. I'm at the point here where both threads are coming out in the middle, and I'm just going to use one of my 8/0 turquoise and crisscross through that bead, coming out to the end here of one of my RounDuo beads. When I'm out at the end here, on either side, I'm just going to add that little 3/8 picot trim that you've been doing the whole length of the bracelet. So it has the matubos with the turquoise on the side. When I'm in the middle then here, on the one side here, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, getting to the middle. And then here at the middle is where I'm going to kind of mirror the start. So I started with just a RounDuo in place. So I'm going to add my 15/0s, 1 on each needle. And then after that, and they're kind of hard to see because they're tiny, I'm going to pick up my RounDuo bead, going through the same hole, 1 needle left to right, 1 needle right to left, push that down towards my project. I'm going to do my little picot trim again. Go through the top hole of the RounDuo on one side, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, crisscrossing through. And that's going to finish off then that complete end. Give a nice tight pull because you want that down. Oops, I missed a bead there. I'm going to get that nice and down next to your project. Once you have that on, we're going to get ready to do our loop to go around our cup button. To do my loop, what I'm going to do is, coming out the top here of my RounDuo, you can see my needle fell off the one end. I'm getting kind of short with thread. So I'm just not going to bother to use that end right now. I'm going to start to do my loop to loop my cup button in. And I'm going to do this with my Matubos and my 15 O's. So I'm just going to do every other bead. I'm going to take that needle that I still have on, pick up 2 15 O's, and then I'm going to do every other, my Matubo and my 15. That's just going to decorate it. The reason that I used these was because my cup button is more of that turquoise color, so I thought this would be a nice addition. You're going to add enough beads here so that your loop can go around your cup button. You don't want it to be too big though, that it's going to fall off. The nice thing with the cup buttons is the curvature to it allows it to be easy to put on and off, but it doesn't just slip off. I really like button closures. Once you have your loop that's big enough, you're going to finish it off with 2 of your 15 O's, just like you did at the start. And then I'm going to reinforce that by going back through the RounDuo on the other side. So my thread was coming out the right side. I added all my beads. Then I'm going in on the left-hand side. And that's going to make my loop. Make sure your loop can fit your cup button. I look good. And then you're going to reinforce your loop by sewing back up through. It's going to be a little bit painful for me to do since I only have a tiny bit of thread, but I'll manage and I'll make it. We're going to sew back up through, and then once the thread gets over to this side, I'm just going to tie a knot. So right now I'm going to feed my needle and thread back through all of my beads. Here's where it's nice also to have a wide-eye needle handy. The wide-eye needle is kind of nice because you're able to move the thread from one side of the needle to the other. I'm going to sew back through this entire row here, coming right down to the end. Once you have it down at the end here, right next to one another, I'm just going to tie those 2 ends together with a nice tight pull. So after tying the ends together and doing a little dab of glue, I'm just going to go in with my thread burner, burn those thread ends off, melt them down a little bit, fusing them, and then I have my bracelet done. So this one side here, you see the nice flat edge. Then you get to the fun side where it sticks up and has that little bit of a peak to it and that little bit of a rise. And it looks really great and feels really great on the wrist. I like this bracelet even more now that it's done than when I started it. And it's kind of addicting. I think I'm going to have to make a couple others. But it gives a nice look to it. It's a little large on me, which means that it's going to be able to fit a 6-inch wrist really nicely. And you're only going to use 1 container of your RounDuos. You're not even going to. Here I have So I have 22, so I'm using 44 of my RounDuo beads in my bracelet. Oh, 45, because I have that little bead at the end. So really great, fun bracelet. As far as the 2-hole triangles go, I can show you, I used obviously more of the turquoise color because I used that for both sides of my peaks. You could do, if you just wanted to do all one color, you could do the whole bracelet with just 1 tube. But you can still see I have quite a fair amount left of both of them. So the nice thing is you can make another bracelet. You could also switch some of the different beads out for one another, substituting with RounDuo or with super duos in the middle. So you can play around with this technique with the 2 needles, but it makes it really, really easy and nice to work with. I really do love the way that this feels. The actual kind of shimmer on it is really, really pretty. It has that pearl look that I love, and I'm really excited to wear this bracelet. So if you haven't had a chance yet to play around with these 2-hole triangles, like I just got a chance to play around with, very excited that I have a completed piece made with it now, rather than just a couple random little sample pieces that I'm playing around with. And if you get a chance, you can check out the rest of the YouTube videos as well as subscribe, so that way you get updates on the different videos that we do. You can also visit us in our retail stores. We'd love to see you, teach you a class there. And also continue to post on Facebook, show us what you've made and what you've done with our products, and we're happy to get more out to you and continue making videos for you to enjoy all of the different beads that we carry. Thanks a lot for watching, and have fun making this Rounded Peaks bracelet.